And welcome to another episode of The Focal Thought. My guest today is Dale Solomon. How are you, Dale?
Doing good. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks. Thanks for jumping on board this episode. I'm excited to speak with you about spirulina today. So you work with Oasia Farms. It's a spirulina farm-based project in Los Angeles County, and you work small scale with customers, which means you can focus on quality artisanal spirulina. Now, you have mentioned on your website, a lot of health food stores do sell powdered spirulina, but you are offering a raw, fresh alternative for maximum nutritional value as well as flavor. So that's very exciting to see that. And in terms of a background, you actually graduated from USC's Viterbi School of Engineering, and you took a job in aerospace and then switched to farming. And I'm hoping the science and engineering that you learned, you're sort of using towards the current work that you're doing with Oasia Farms. And here you are growing nutritious and therapeutic food. So welcome aboard.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. I wanted to ask you, so first off, this is not a typical farm where there's soil involved, right? So you're actually doing it hydroponically, which means the main conductor for the life force is water, right? So if you could just maybe start off talking about the difference possibly between water versus soil for farming.
Yeah. So a lot of people ask me, is this hydroponics or aquaponics? And I say, no, it's similar. It's actually aquaculture. And the difference is that, aquaculture is when you're growing stuff that's native to the water, as opposed to those other two, which are, putting the roots of terrestrial crops like the tomato plant, for instance, into water. So spirulina is native to lakes like Lake Texcoco in what is now Mexico City. They plastered over the lake, or Lake Chad in Central Africa is where this particular strain comes from. And so those are alkaline lakes. They have mineral deposits. And that's what, in nature, that's what feeds those spirulina cultures. And what we've basically done is recreated a lot of the conditions where they grow, but inside of a greenhouse. And so we're adding salt nutrients like magnesium and sodium nitrate and chloride ions, potassium, all the things that plants need. And so this is basically what you have is a colony of single-celled organisms that are growing together in the water, working together as a team, sort of shade and protect one another. And they're pretty much just flowing around in the water. We have these paddle wheels that keeps it flowing. So it's a little bit different than, I shouldn't say it's a little bit, it's a lot different than growing in the ground. Because we're constantly manipulating that aquatic growth medium, whereas terrestrial farming is a little bit more, let it be, just wait and see what happens. And this is a little bit more fast paced.
Got it, got it. Okay, and if users, and listeners, I would encourage you to visit, the website, and I'll post it in the show notes as well. You can see some pictures where you're standing on this laneway of this trough that's been built, out of wood, and there's water there, and you can see the semicircular roof, which is the greenhouse. So is there a reason why you might not want to say, take over a lake, or maybe, do some sort of actual artificial lake and grow the spirulina there? Or is there some sort of benefit or edge you get as to, with the control process, maybe using this greenhouse format?
I think that there might be one company that I know of in India, or it's either India or Southeast Asia, that does grow on a lake. But other than them, everyone in the industry grows in ponds and controlled environments. And for all the small farmers, we do ponds that are inside of the greenhouse. And the reason why is because it's just a much more controlled growing environment. If the light intensity gets too high, you can put a shade screen on top and mitigate the amount of UV intensity. If it gets cold, you can put a double layer greenhouse, which we have, and inflate inside and sort of insulate it better and retain more of the heat. You can control the different, oxygen levels, for instance, by putting a fan in there. And it's just a much higher level of control. Obviously, you're not getting birds flying over and doing what they do. You're not getting debris and stuff like that falling into the pond. And so that level of control is really something that's it's worth the cost of building a greenhouse. And no, I don't think I would recommend or ever try myself growing in a lake. There's just too much that could go wrong.
Got it. No, so you're definitely going about the control process as the priority, and I'm sure you can measure a better yield by doing it this way, right?
Yeah, yeah. If one nutrient or other is off, we can measure that and add more, and we can address problems as we find them. If you're growing in a lake, you just can't. You're just hoping and praying that it's going to work out right. Yeah, it's all about being able to control your own destiny as opposed to letting nature have all the control, which is a little bit scary.
Sure. And I've always been fascinated by things that are grown naturally versus things that are grown in a controlled environment. And you can have the philosophy that says natural is always better, but sometimes I think in a controlled environment, like you're saying, if you're able to sort of track the measurements, you might even get a better yield than nature might, I dare say. Cheekily.
Oh yeah, yeah. You not only will you get a better yield, but you'll have a better productivity, and you'll also have higher quality, because there's so many things that can affect the growth rate of the spirulina. And if you can't manage those things, yeah, it's going to drop off. But the biggest thing of all really is that you don't want to get other pathogenic microbes and other algae in particular in the culture. If you have other algae in there, spirulina is kind of an anomaly in that it's good for you. But if you watch the news, you'll see a lot of people talking about these harmful algal blooms, toxic algal blooms. Most algae, especially most filamentous algae, which spirulina is, produce cyanotoxins, and that's it's as scary as it sounds. It's not good. They're neurotoxins. So if you get other filamentous algae in there, and if you're growing in a lake, that's quite likely, then you're incorporating toxins into your final product, and that's just not something you want.
Wow. So then with picking something like spirulina, what was the inspiration for this? I mean, spirulina is something I might have recently heard, maybe going 8 to 10 years back, sort of traveling to different health stores. You'd see it on the magazines there. You'd see it in the form of capsules, maybe some, powdered form for smoothies. And spirulina is something that, the Aztecs and, Mesoamericans have been using as a food source right up until, I think, 15th, 16th century. They're autotrophic, which means they can make their own food. I guess they're photosynthetic. And for, now we're sort of in the space race, they're looking at that for dietary support, for these missions, long-term flight missions, and, for Mars especially. It's a very rich food source used as a replacement as well as a supplement. So how did you get into spirulina?
Yeah, so I was working in aerospace, like you noted in the introduction, and really not loving the ethos behind that industry, which is really just all about money and consequences be damned. A lot of the stuff that's going out being sold is being sold to countries that don't have the greatest humanitarian records, and I wanted to be part of something more positive. And I just remember being in college in this environmental club and talking one of our days to this guy who was doing a presentation on algae and algae biofuels specifically. I think that climate change is the fundamental fight for humanity. in the 21st century. It will define our future for centuries to come, whether we get our arms around this thing or not. And I just wanted to be part of that fight. I wanted to be doing something more positive. So originally I wanted to grow algae for biofuels and try to find a way to use my degree as an industrial engineer to drive the price down to a point, through efficiency, to a point where it was competitive with oil. And after looking into the industry more, I don't think that that's very practical. Technologically speaking, it is possible, but it's going to be damn near impossible to get to cost parity. And so I started looking into spirulina and saying, okay, well, I can't do that, but maybe I could enter the industry in another way and find a way to use algae to fight climate change, because it's very, very efficient at sucking up CO2, which is the most famous greenhouse gas. And lately we've been looking into ways of having the spirulina, which is very high in protein, become an alternative source of protein to animal protein. The agriculture industry, and specifically the meat portion of the agriculture industry, produces a ton of emissions. And so we want to try to find a way to use algae to lower emissions. And we haven't quite settled on a way yet, but we think that there's potential for protein extraction, possibly even genetic modification or other routes. And we're talking to some scientists and researchers about that right now. But as of now, we're just selling it as a whole food. And it still is very sustainable, very low water use, ironically, even though it grows in the water. And so we're really keeping our eye long term on how to use the spirulina or even potentially another algae to mitigate climate change. And that's really at the heart of why I'm doing this.
Got it. Okay. And you mentioned it's the main driving force is the water use. So are you sourcing the water specifically from any sort of, areas that are conducive to better growth? And how do you manage recycling the water, or do you even recycle it?
We do recycle the water. Yeah. After every harvest, it falls back into the pond. Now, after we extract the algae, and then the water and the nutrients fall back into the pond. But it can only be reused so much. So every 3 months, and actually today is the day that we did this, we dump the ponds, and then we start new and fresh. And it just tends to build up stuff. The spirulina is like any organism that has waste products, and that those waste products go into the pond and they need to be flushed out periodically. But as far as your first question goes, there's no specific source. There's no, we didn't pick this land because of the water. We find that, most well water, most municipal water will work just fine. If it's municipal, you have to remove the chlorine, and so we carbon filter our water. But it's pretty much anywhere in the U.S. has water that's going to be perfectly usable. If it's safe to drink, it's safe, for the spirulina.
Got it. Okay. And, by that regard, you are recycling the water and nature isn't. And if something as sensitive as, spirulina needing pH levels of say 8 to 10 in nature, the water could just drastically change over time, right? And no one's recycling it. So that might not be good spirulina to eat.
Yeah, that's another thing to consider. Again, I think it's just that one farm in Southeast Asia, but it's another way that you don't have perfect control over what's going on.
Got it. Okay. What's a day in the a day in the life on your farm like from morning to night for harvesting and growing spirulina?
I wish I could tell you. There's no one set day. It's always something new. And I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but I'm having a lot of fun. And it's just, staying on your toes, ready for the next problem. And I always think that I've got it under control, and then I spirulina sneaks up and finds a new problem. But I'm an engineer, so I love problem solving, and sometimes it gets exhausting. But we're waking up early, 5 a.m., getting the harvest started, setting up all the equipment, sterilizing stuff, and then getting the pumps ready. As the sun's coming up, we're bringing stuff into bring the product into the trailer here where we work, and we're putting it into ice baths in a fridge, getting it packaged up, getting everything cleaned off, ready for the next day, and just trying to beat the heat. And in between all that, I'm fielding phone calls and trying to expand, trying to find investors. So we've got one so far, and just always looking for that next thing. How can we find better fertilizers that are lower in impurities, and how can we offer a better product to our customers? How can we be faster so we can continue to cut costs and be competitive? And it's all about finding ways to be continuously improving the operation. So every day is a little different.
Sure, and that's reminiscent of any business that's in motion. The variables change, and you have to adapt to meet the variables. And I would imagine that being in a greenhouse, you're not at the mercy of climate and nature's harsh realities with volatile weather swings, things like that. But it doesn't seem like it's something like set it and forget it. You're still dealing with things that might pop up, and you're learning new things every day, it seems.
Absolutely. And it's a very humbling process. There's some times where I've been told, people who've been doing this for years, inexplicably the cultures will start acting up, and you just have to do your best to try to figure it out. And if that doesn't work, you got to know when to cut bait and start over again, refresh the ponds with new media. A lot of the time that will solve the problem. But it's a constant learning game. It's very humbling. And I think that I'm not going to do this forever. I mean, maybe another 10, 15 years, who knows how long. But whatever I end up doing afterward, I know that this is going to make me a better engineer, a better person, because you have to accept what the universe is giving you. You can't take it personally. You can't get mad about it and solve the problem. You just have to stay the course and accept what life's given you and fight like hell to get through. So those are qualities that I think, that level of patience is definitely valuable, and there's no sense in losing it. You just got to stay even keel, and it's something that I'm proud of how far I've come. But there's always more to be done. So yeah, but the spirulina can provide a lot of life lessons.
No, for sure. And just the way you've described it, bringing it back to business, that's true in any sort of entrepreneurship role, or any company that's trying to put its product out there. And sometimes people think that when you get into business, there's some sense of entitlement towards profit, towards customer share. But really, you really have to work your butt off to get that customer share, to get that profit. And really, that's just a reflection of what your work ethic and your values are as a leader, and also of the culture that you maintain as a staff.
Yeah. I always try to set people's expectations when they come here. This is a very tough job. It just is, and there's no getting around that. We always try to, through our continuous improvement, find ways to make it easier and safer and more comfortable. But the reality is, this is physically and mentally a straining job. And you just got to be able to roll with the punches. But yeah, like I said, you end up being a better person for it.
No, for sure. And then the product that you're outputting, so the spirulina, is it in its natural state, or are you converting it into capsules or into powdered forms, etc., things like that?
That's the great thing about Oasia Farms, is we're not doing any of that. Most people know of spirulina as powdered or dehydrated spirulina. It's it's been compacted into a pill maybe, and when they're making spirulina like that, what they're doing is they're taking the fresh product that we sell, and they're instead of packaging it and shipping it out like that, they're flash drying. It's getting oxidized. A lot of the nutritional value is going away, and when it's processed food. Your body can't absorb those nutrients the same way. It's not as bioavailable. And so what we're doing is we're taking that pure spirulina and we're just putting it in a vacuum sealed bag and freezing it. And we find that that reduces oxidation, that preserves the shelf life, and you've got a very pure, potent superfood at its best. And the difference really shows. A lot of people have told me how much more they like this than the powdered spirulina. Powdered spirulina is still perfectly good for you, but I just think that if you're going to go for a luxury superfood, something that's really high quality, have it at its best state, in its best form. And whether it's the flavor, it's kind of tastes like avocado as opposed to the powdered stuff that tastes a little bit fishy, or the nutritional value, which is much greater for the fresh stuff. It's just worth it. And so yeah, I've yet to meet someone who prefers the powder.
Wow. And you know, that really is nice, because if you're vacuum packing it, it can be transported to different countries, especially, you know, countries that have snow going on for maybe, you know, 3/4 of the year, like say Canada, you know, some parts of Canada.
Definitely. Yeah, it's stable at that point. And I always tell people it's similar to fish. So you know, when you have vacuum sealed fish, that can stay good for 2 years. I don't recommend that anyone try to push the limits. It's still better to have food when it's fresher, but yeah, no, it's when you vacuum seal it, it's staying good for a long time.
Got it. And you would recommend maybe people visit their nutritionist or doctor before consuming spirulina in modest amounts, or, you know, getting onto a routine with spirulina, because as you mentioned before, it can lead to some, you know, neuron damages, or I've even heard of some heart issues sometimes, depending if you're compatible with it or not. And this is also not the fault of the spirulina. It might be, you know, with microbes that have come into contact with the spirulina as well, right, along the way.
The only times I would recommend that someone first see a doctor is if, and first of all, I am not a doctor, and this is not medical advice, but I would only recommend that someone proceed with caution if they have an autoimmune disease. And the reason is because the spirulina is a microbe, and the good thing about it is it will put your immune system on high alert. It's an immune booster, because your body sees, oh, there's this microbe. What is this thing that's coming into my body? And obviously it's not harmful to you, so it's perfectly fine, but it will put your immune system on high alert. Now, if you're someone with, say, carpal tunnel, or excuse me, not carpal tunnel, arthritis, or lupus, or another autoimmune disease where your immune system is already overactive and actually harming your body, putting something into your body that's going to boost your immune system even further could be detrimental. The only other thing that I would say I would advise caution is if you're someone with a lot of gut issues. I've met people who have just a laundry list of things that cause them diarrhea or other gut problems. I would say, yeah, proceed with caution. It seems like, you know, certain foods are upsetting your stomach. And I know one lady mentioned to me that she had that problem. And again, for most people, it's a good thing, because spirulina is improving your gut health. It's changing your gut chemistry for the better. But if you're already having so much chaos going on there, it might be good to consult a doctor first. For everyone else, I would say go for it. Even pregnant women, I've been told it's great for pregnancy. It's that people feed it to their dogs. Of course, you can have bad spirulina that's full of heavy metals. A lot of the stuff coming from China is not so good. You could have spirulina that's gone bad or been contaminated in the growing process. But you know, we have all our stuff heavy metal checked. regularly. We send it out to a lab to get inspected for other microbes regularly. And so, with quality spirulina for your average person really shouldn't be a problem at all.
Oh, that's really good fundamental advice, because no two people are made the same, and it's not because one person might be any less than the other. It's just the composition of your genome, your genetic code, your the enzymes that you have, the gut bacteria you have, the microbiomes in your stomach, things like that. Everyone's just so unique. So what one person can digest, another person cannot.
That's right.
So again, going back to, there's no one size that fits all. So that's really good that you mentioned.
Spirulina is a detox. It's a detoxifying agent. So if someone is trying to get on a better health track, but they've been eating a lot of unhealthy food, and then they go gung-ho right with the spirulina on a fast, and that's all that they're eating, and they're eating tons of it, it's probably not going to make you feel so great, because it's drawing out all those toxins from your body. And I've had a few people tell me that too, like, oh, I was eating a whole pack a day. And I was like, well, why'd you do that? That's a lot. So yeah, if you're not eating so well and trying to get on a new path, I would say definitely go with the spirulina, but just go slowly. Don't go having a bunch of it all at once, or it's gonna be a rough road.
No, for sure. And like one of my good friends from high school always says, like with anything, moderation in moderation. So
yes,
it speaks to anything. And also like that it's coming in vacuum packed, as close to the original source that has been harvested, because too often I find with vegetables, especially with something, I'm very fond of vegetables, done in sort of like an Indian cuisine, culinary way. But I find that, it gets cooked too much, that the nutrients are taken out. You've added a ton of flavor to it, but you've lost that original nutritional source. And, the fact that you're saying it's not processed as much into the powdered form, or, combined with other things, keeping that original source. I mean, that's the purpose out of all of this, right? You're doing all of this so that we can extract the maximum value from it.
That's right.
And then if you're sort of, denaturing it, it really doesn't make sense. So I'm glad you're keeping it as whole as possible.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I always tell people, some say, well, can I cook with it? Can I bake with it? And I say, yeah, sure, you can do all of that, but it will denature some of the nutritional value in there. So sure, you could mix it in with some dough and make bread out of it, a nice green dough. I don't know that you get as much nutritional value. You could put it in soup too, but you're probably going to want to wait until you're just before you're serving the soup to add the spirulina. And so my rule of thumb for people is, if it's too hot to eat, then it's too hot for your spirulina. And that temperature is about 140 degrees. Once you're getting above 140 degrees Fahrenheit, you're starting to damage the cells. And so yeah, if you want to put it in soup, I'd say just wait until just before you're about to eat it and mix it in there. And I've actually done that a number of times. Turns a nice bright green, but it's delicious.
Wow, that's awesome. I hope that, you're working on Oasia Farms, but I hope you come out with a spirulina cookbook, because knowing how to use it is as important as harvesting it.
That's right. Yeah. Well, we've got a video on the website about all the different recipes you can use with spirulina. And my mom used to be a caterer. She's retired from that now. But, when I started this business, she had a field day. She was making so many things, and they were delicious, like a gazpacho and some olive tapenade with spirulina, obviously plenty of smoothies and salad dressings. So you can find all that on our Instagram and on our website. And yeah, it's a fun one to work with, because it's just got such a neutral flavor. It will take on the flavor of just about anything you put it in.
Sure. And imagine, from someone like yourself who's working and living and breathing this on a daily basis, you're also consuming it consistently. Personally, have you noticed any effects, in your own health with your body from the time you started consuming spirulina?
I'm not the most observant person, so I haven't. But I remember going home and my mom said, "You look great. Your skin looks so healthy, and you look awake. And your hair looks good." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even notice that." But okay, okay. And we think it's because of the spirulina. So I've had other people tell me it's helping them with their eyesight. It's helping with healing bruising much faster, and I do notice after having it in a smoothie, I generally feel it's just that sort of, I guess you could say, the opposite of after you have steak and potato dinner. It's like you just have a nice, light, energetic feeling as opposed to sluggish.
Sure. And I know what that feeling is because I consume smoothies daily, and it's very subtle. It's not in your face sometimes, but you've got that sustainability for the day if you've consumed a smoothie first thing in the morning. So I totally agree with that.
Ready for the day.
Yeah. Listen, thanks again for coming on the show and for sharing your experience at Oasia Farms. And if people want to get a hold of you, oasiafarms.com, is that the place to go?
That's right. You got my email and phone number on there, and you can reach out to us through Instagram or Facebook, whatever's most convenient.
Okay, that's great. And thanks again for coming on the show, Dale, and I wish you well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm wishing you well, and have a great day.
My pleasure.